Thank you, Stephen. I'm glad that Stephen had an opportunity to do the announcements today. I bet you found out it's not that easy, is it? You thought you had the hard part. Many years ago, I think just about one of the first times I ever delivered a sermon in a church was in South America. I was attending this little Peruvian church, this little Spanish-speaking church, very charismatic place, and I offered to give a sermon because I was learning Spanish and I wanted to learn how to do this, so I had a neat object lesson, and I got together with a Peruvian friend, and I got my grammar corrected, and I wrote down all the words I needed to know, and the day came, and I was there in front of the church, and I gave this excellent, wonderful 15-minute sermon. And then when I was done, I sat down, and the elders of the church kind of looked at each other. Then one of them stood up and kind of faltered to the podium, and he started speaking. And it wasn't until later that I realized that in their culture, the sermon has to go for at least an hour. And here I cut it short, and they didn't know what to do with the rest of the time. The people were fidgeting, so he stood up and he kind of recapped a little bit of what my talk was about, and I was kind of embarrassed later on, but last night I rehearsed this little talk, and it came out at 56 minutes. We don't do that here. So I started ripping and tearing, and this morning I tried it again, and I got it down to 40 minutes. So I'm shooting for 20 minutes today. We'll see what happens. And I need to get something. Just continue to visit amongst yourselves for just a minute. I have a little something I want to get here. How you doing, buddy? Huh? Everything okay back here? Be cold? No? No, they won't laugh. No, the church ladies won't get mad, don't worry. I cleaned you up, you're clean, right? You won't make a mess, will you? I hope. Okay. All right, Exhibit A, bicycle, one each. This is my new bicycle, and I'm wanting to show it to you. It's a mountain bike, and this thing is really cool. Welded aluminum frame, nice and light. Front and rear suspension, which I've never had before. 29-inch wheels. These things are really cool. They suck up the bumps. You can go over logs and roots and stuff, and you'd hardly even feel it. It's wonderful. Front suspension, I can add air to these shock absorbers. I can lock up the front suspension so it doesn't move at all. I can adjust, let's see, right here underneath the shock, there's a little knob you can turn to adjust the return rate. The rear suspension has about the same adjustments. You can lock it up for when you're riding in the street and you want to accelerate. It doesn't suck up your energy in bouncing. There's also a little dial here with a rabbit and a turtle on it. So I guess when you want to go fast, you put it on the rabbit, and slowly you want to put it on the turtle. You can also air it up. Disc brakes. Now these aren't just ordinary, regular, everyday disc brakes. These are hydraulic disc brakes. If I want to, with one finger on each hand, I can lock up the wheels. I have thrown myself over the handlebars locking up the wheels. What else can I tell you about it? 11 gears. Look at the sprocket on the back of this thing. It's huge. It's like a pie plate size. You can go from stump pulling mode to let's get somewhere fast mode in just seconds. It's wonderful. I was going to show you the coolest feature. Oh, I know. Now you know you have a quality bike when you have a factory installed. Hey, why is it not working? Bell. There we go. I can come up behind someone on the trail and give them a warning. I don't have to yell, hey, I'm coming up on your left, passing on your right. I just ring the bell and they know I'm back there. The ultimate in communication. Oh, I was going to show you this really cool feature, but it's not working. Oh, I have to fix this thing all the time. It's got an ejection seat on it. You can hold this knob here, but it's in the cold. It seems like it doesn't want to work. Nope, I just broke it. Never mind. Anyway, I think one of the coolest features about this bicycle is it didn't cost me anything. Now that's really cool for a cheapskate. This was a gift from my children for Father's Day last year. I have one question. Really, what am I supposed to do with this thing? I ride a bicycle from home to work and from work to home. 5 blocks. 5 blocks every day. What do I need something like this for? My 45-year-old twin was working just fine. The one that I found out at the dump grounds, that I've been riding for the last 25 years. There was nothing wrong with that bicycle. It got me to work most of the time. Why do I need this thing? It's opulent. It's over the top. It's, what's some other words I picked out for this? It's just too much. It's not me. What is wrong with my kids? What were they thinking? I don't need this thing. You know, the Bible has a lot to say about finances, as we have been discovering in Sunday school. In fact, the Proverbs are full of proverbs about what to do with your money and not wasting it. Wasteful spending. In fact, Jesus had a few things to say about it himself. I'm going to read from John 12. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of the disciples, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you will always have with you, but you do not always have me." There are some interesting parallels here between my bicycle and this incident that's recorded in the life of Christ. If I'm to follow these parallels to their logical conclusion, I can only say that my children are preparing me for the day of my burial. I'm going to leave instructions with my son that when I die, I am to be buried with this bicycle. Let's have a little closer look at this event in the life of Christ. I'd like to go over some details, and there must be something here that we can apply to our own lives. This account is also mentioned in Matthew and Mark. And they did not apparently collaborate with each other on their story because they give different details and different aspects of what was happening here. I think perhaps that John is indeed present when this happened because he mentions about the smell of the perfume permeating the entire house. Some things about what we know of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. They're all from Bethany. They're brother and sisters. Bethany is about 2 miles from Jerusalem. It's on the Mount of Olives. And there's some details that were not given, but I'm curious about it. We're not told if all 3 of these people live in the same house, for example. We don't know their birth order. Sometimes we kind of assume that Lazarus is the older of them, but that's not necessarily true. We're not told that. We don't know if any or all of them are married. It seems likely in my mind that they all are. Perhaps Mary is not. She might have been the youngest one, but we simply don't know. There's the detail about the alabaster jar. These little jars that held perfume were made of calcite, sometimes called alabaster. And they were usually quite small and held about an ounce of perfume. And they still find these alabaster perfume jars in tombs around the area of Jerusalem. And these tombs are dated around the time of Jesus' life on the earth. So we know that somehow they used these to anoint or cover the body of the dead people, the dead loved ones. So when Jesus says that she's anointing me for my death, there's some truth there, there's some meaning there. But why did Mary have such a large quantity of this perfume? We're talking about something held about 12 ounces of perfume, and it would be very expensive. We don't know. We're not told that. Some commentators feel that she may have been a wealthy person and had her own resources. This is kind of unlikely because it wasn't that common back in that time. The women did not have the control of that quantity of money. I think, this is an Owenism, I think perhaps you have to remember that Lazarus was there and he was raised from the dead. Perhaps this is perfume that was bought for his burial, and this is perfume that was left over from that. Others feel that perhaps, Jesus had been leaving hints to his disciples that he was going to Jerusalem and he was going to die there. And they didn't ever understand what he was saying. They didn't process it correctly. At least one commentator says that he feels that Mary understood what he was saying, and she realized that he was literally saying that he was going to go to Jerusalem to die, and that she was preparing him for his death. But I think that is very unlikely, because usually you did this after the person was dead, and Jesus is not dead yet, of course. It is my opinion that Mary is expressing gratitude. And I say that because it makes the story fit in with what I want to say. But now think about this for just a minute. Mary's there. She's perhaps serving the guests. And here is her beloved brother, who weeks before, just days before, had been dead, in the grave, stinking. And Jesus, the man who was responsible for his being there at that dinner, was right there with him. And she was looking at them both. And the family ties of that time were far closer than they are now. Now your kids grow up, they move away to Minneapolis, you don't see them anymore. Well, they didn't really do that back then. Families stayed together, sometimes in the same house, at least in the same town. And the family bonds were stronger. And her brother was lost to her, and now here he is. He's alive. He's alive. And she does this extravagant gesture. She takes the perfume, and she does something that is, I think it was rather shocking to the guests that were there. Because you have to realize this was kind of a public place. It was somebody's home, but the public was somehow able to come and go because there were people, in one of the Gospels it says that there were people from Jerusalem that were coming there to see Lazarus and Jesus, Lazarus whom Jesus has raised from the dead. And you have to understand that she let down her hair. And in this culture you don't do that. You don't let your hair down unless you're in the privacy of your home with your own family. In the presence of your husband. You don't do that in public. So Mary, and if she wasn't married, it would probably be okay for her to do that, nevertheless. But anyway, I'm not going to charge you extra for that. But Mary takes this jar of perfume, and we're told that she anoints his head and his feet with this oil. And then she proceeds to wipe Jesus' feet with her hair. It was customary at that time, when you had guests over, to anoint their head with oil and to provide water for them to wash their feet. And in their culture, feet were pretty much the dirtiest part of your whole body, because in that day there were animal droppings everywhere, and you're walking through them in the streets and so on. And your feet would become just as soiled as you can imagine. And so it was important when you arrived at someone's home to remove your shoes and have your feet washed, or wash them yourself. And in this case, Mary took it upon herself to wash his dirty, filthy feet with her hair, and then to put perfume on his feet as well. This is a gesture that I can only describe as opulent, over the top, and very expensive. And I believe very strongly that she is simply expressing tremendous gratitude for Jesus for what he did for her and her family. And it's a public demonstration, and it's extraordinary. I'd like to step away from the story for just a minute and talk for a moment about gratitude. As I was preparing for this little TED Talk, and thank you for your commentaries, Stephen, I guess I came to realize just how important gratitude is. Robert Emmons, Dr. Robert Emmons, is perhaps the world's leading scientific expert on gratitude. This guy got a doctorate degree on gratitude. Can you imagine? He argues that gratitude has two key components. First, it's an affirmation of goodness. We affirm that there are good things in the world, gifts and benefits that we've received. In the second part of gratitude, we recognize that the sources of this goodness are outside of ourselves. We acknowledge that other people, or perhaps higher powers, gave us many gifts, big and small, to help us achieve the goodness in our lives. In the world of psychology and counseling, there are about 30 indicators that psychologists can use. When they're working with people that commonly measure, these are personality traits that are commonly measured to indicate someone's psychological or emotional well-being. And according to 2 recent studies, high levels of gratitude explain more about a person's well-being than any of the other traits. Now think about that for a minute. Gratitude? Really? That can be a measurement of someone's mental self-being? I'm going to share with you 7 scientifically proven benefits that go along with an attitude of gratitude. Gratitude opens the door to more relationships. A study found that thanking a new acquaintance makes them more likely to seek an ongoing relationship. So whether you thank a stranger for holding the door, or you send them a thank you note to that colleague who helped you with a project, acknowledging other people's contributions can lead to new opportunities. So say thank you. Gratitude improves physical health. Grateful people experience fewer aches and pains and report feeling healthier than other people. Imagine that. Not surprisingly, grateful people are also more likely to take care of their health. They exercise more often and are more likely to attend regular checkups. Gratitude improves, this is number 3. Gratitude improves psychological health. Gratitude reduces a multitude of toxic emotions, from envy and resentment to frustration and regret. Research confirms that gratitude effectively increases happiness and reduces depression. Gratitude enhances empathy, this is number 4, and reduces aggression. Grateful people are more likely to behave in a pro-social manner, even when others behave less kindly. 5, grateful people sleep better. Writing in a gratitude journal improves sleep. Can you imagine that? It improves sleep, health, and well-being. Spend just 15 minutes jotting down a few grateful sentiments before bed, and you may sleep better and longer. I tried it last night. I woke up at 6 o'clock. I enjoyed that extra 2 hours of sleep. Gratitude improves self-esteem. Self-esteem is an essential component to optimal performance. You basketball players, take note. A study showed that gratitude increased athletes' self-esteem. Other studies, and I'm talking about the athlete expressing gratitude to others. Self-esteem is I already said that. Other studies have shown that gratitude reduces social comparisons. Interesting. Rather than becoming resentful toward people who have more money or better jobs, which is a major factor in reduced self-esteem, grateful people are able to appreciate other people's accomplishments. Take note of that, you people who are on Facebook all the time. Social comparisons. Okay, last of all, gratitude increases mental strength. For years, research has shown that gratitude not only reduces stress, but it may also play a major role in overcoming trauma. A study found that Vietnam War veterans with higher levels of gratitude experienced lower rates of PTSD. Another study found that gratitude was a major contributor to resilience following the terrorist attacks on September 11th. Recognizing all that you have to be thankful for, even during the worst times, fosters resilience. Johnny Erickson Tada, I think, is one of those great heroes of the faith in our modern time. At 17 years of age, she drove off of a raft, and without realizing how shallow it was, injured her spine and became a paraplegic. For months after that, she was just utterly depressed. She recalls at nighttime, when no one was around and the lights were off, moving her head back and forth as fast as she could and hard as she could, trying to snap her neck so that she could commit suicide. But she couldn't move. She couldn't kill herself, so that was the only way she could think of doing it. And finally, through help of a friend, and I mean, you have to understand that being in this condition, you have to ask, where is God in this? Why did God let this happen to me? What was the purpose of this? Don't give me this thing in Romans about how things work together for good. What kind of a God would do this to me? And then, with the help of her friend Steve, finding answers to that question. And today, amazingly enough, she will tell you straight out, she is grateful for what God did to her at that time, because of how it changed her inside. She began to be grateful for the small things in life. She was grateful that she was in a hospital bed with 6 other women by a window, so that at nighttime she could see the moon. And in the daytime she could see the leaves move on the tree that was just outside her window as the wind blew through the branches of the tree. And she began to recognize the value of relationships with her parents, with her siblings, with friends, with relatives. And through this gratitude and the overcoming her difficulties and finding a life that had meaning, she has a ministry on this planet that is just unbelievable. The encouragement she brings to people who are in similar circumstances, and the joy she has found in being able to minister to others. And she has a good life. She has a happy life. And it's just astonishing to me that she can have this despite what happened to her, and the gratitude she expresses to God for even this horrible thing that happened to her. It's amazing to me. One thing that God has been revealing to me as I prepared for this little TED Talk is that God doesn't particularly need our gratitude. He doesn't need anything from us. Our gratitude doesn't really help God, so why in the world is there so much in the Bible, and why is gratitude such an issue in the Psalms and in the Proverbs? I've come to believe that it's simply because gratitude toward God transforms the heart of whoever it is that's experiencing the gratitude. We're commanded to be grateful to what God has done because it enhances our relationship with Him. I'd like to read a little bit more from Luke 7. This is another incident, strangely enough, that's recorded of a woman anointing Jesus' feet. It's definitely a different instance because it's in a different place and at a different time and a different woman. But the lesson here is slightly different. One of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house and took his place at the table. And behold, a woman of the city, who was a sinner, when she learned that he was reclining at table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of ointment. And standing behind him at his feet, weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with the ointment. Now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, If this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner." And Jesus, answering, said to him, "Simon, I have something to say to you." And he answered, "Say it, teacher." "A certain moneylender had 2 debtors, one who owed 500 denarii and the other 50. When they could not pay, he canceled the debt of both. Now, which of them will love him more?" Simon answered, "Well, I guess the one who got the more debt that was forgiven him." And he said to him, "You have judged rightly." Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little loves little." We often hear these gee whiz testimonies from people. You know, the one where the person is steeped in sin and they're living a life of debauchery and drunkenness and drug addiction and broken relationships. And then the Lord reaches down through the muck and the mire and grabs them and pulls them out. And they're saved from this life of terrible things. And they become believers in Jesus, and their life is changed, and they have this love for God. And I just want to slap them. I've been a good guy mostly, some of the time, all my life, most of my life, and here they are, and look what they've been through and what they did to Jesus' name, and now they're saved and they have a wonderful life, and they have this incredible relationship with Jesus, and that I never have had, and I guess this is it. When God forgives much, your gratitude brings you closer to God than other people who don't have much to forgive at all. So what about the bike? I believe that my children purchased this bike out of appreciation for their father. I remember the years that they lived under my roof. And after supper, they would clean up the table and put away the food and clean up the dishes. And then they would seek me out. And they would come to me and they would say, Father, let us sit at your feet. Teach us the wisdom that you have learned over the years. For we are but children and we are ignorant and we know nothing. We are going to go out into the cruel world and we want to be prepared. Teach us, Father. Or maybe they just feel guilty about the trouble they got into and the things they did when they were under my roof that I never found out about. But I'm going to choose that they are showing gratitude. And to me, this bicycle is a token of their love for me. Sorry. Excuse me. Frog in my throat. Wouldn't it be nice if we were able to express to God the gratitude that He deserves and the benefit that we would receive from doing that? This bicycle it means something to me. It's cool. I like it. Well, if I can make it through this prayer, won't you join me? Nope, I'm not going to make it. Gary, would you mind praying for us?
Sure.
Thanks.
Lord, this morning we do come before you with thankfulness and gratitude for what you have done for us. Thank you for all of the points that you have chosen to share with us this morning through Owen's message. Lord, all the 7 points of how it really helps us as individuals to show